In the frozen edges of the world, where life barely clings to existence, a silent invader has risen from the depths. It's made some people rich and left the ocean scarred. To Alaskan fishermen, it's a golden catch worth billions. But to scientists, it's an ecological disaster, a ruthless predator ripping apart the fragile balance of the northern seas. The red king crab, once prized as a royal delicacy, is now the ocean's ticking time bomb. Imported, unleashed, and thriving where it doesn't belong, this billion-dollar species has become both a treasure and a threat. So what's really happening beneath the icy waves? Why has a creature that once symbolized luxury turned into one of the most feared invaders on Earth? This is the story of Deep Discover, the invasive royal crab, how a billion-dollar species is rewriting Alaska's future. One claw at a time. The story begins not in Alaska, but in the Soviet Union during the early 1960s. Soviet fisheries scientists, working under central planning mandates to increase domestic protein production, developed an ambitious biological engineering project. They would transplant red king crab from the North Pacific, specifically from waters around Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula, to the Barents Sea near Murmansk in the Arctic. Between 1961 and 1969, Soviet vessels transported approximately 1.5 million crab larvae, 10,000 juvenile crabs, and 2,600 adult crabs across thousands of miles of ocean. The plan was to establish a self-sustaining population that would create a new commercial fishery in previously underutilized waters. The Barents Sea had similar temperatures and salinity to the crab's native range. Soviet planners believed the transplantation would succeed. They were right, but perhaps too successful. For the first decade, the introduced population remained relatively small and localized. Then, beginning in the mid-1970s, king crab numbers began growing exponentially. By the 1980s, they had spread well beyond the original release sites. By the 2000s, king crabs had colonized vast stretches of the Norwegian and Russian Barents Sea coasts, creating an invasion that continues expanding today. The biological characteristics that made king crabs attractive for transplantation also made them formidable invaders. These are large animals. Some individuals develop leg spans exceeding 6 feet and weights over 20 pounds. They live long lives, often exceeding 20 years, giving them extended reproductive periods. A single female can produce 500,000 eggs in a single breeding season. The larvae drift with ocean currents, spreading the population across enormous areas. King crabs are generalist predators and scavengers. They consume mollusks, sea worms, starfish, sea urchins, small crustaceans, and fish eggs. Their powerful claws crack shells that many native predators cannot open. In their introduced range, they face few natural predators. No local species evolved specifically to hunt king crabs, so nothing controls their population growth except resource availability and competition. This combination creates exponential population expansion. Each successful female produces hundreds of thousands of offspring. A significant percentage of these larvae survive to maturity and begin reproducing themselves. Within a few generations, king crabs can become the dominant large invertebrate in an area, fundamentally altering the ecosystem. The ecological impacts in the Barents Sea are significant and well documented. King crabs change benthic community structure, the complex assemblages of organisms living on the seafloor. They consume species that native predators depend on, creating competition for food resources. They disturb sediments while foraging, affecting filter feeders and organisms that depend on stable substrate. They predate heavily on commercially valuable species like scallops. Scientific surveys in areas with established king crab populations show measurable declines in native species diversity and abundance. Some mollusks and echinoderms have declined by 50% or more in heavily invaded areas. The changes cascade through food webs, affecting fish populations and other organisms that depend on the displaced species. Yet this ecological disruption created economic opportunity. By the 1990s, both Russian and Norwegian fisheries recognized they had a commercially valuable species spreading uncontrollably through their waters. The crabs were already established across vast areas. Eradication would be prohibitively expensive, likely impossible given the crab's distribution and reproductive capacity. Instead, both nations chose exploitation. If king crabs were going to dominate these ecosystems regardless of human action, they might as well harvest them profitably. This brings us to Alaska, where the story becomes more complex. Alaska has native king crab species that have inhabited North Pacific waters for millennia. These aren't the transplanted invaders of the Barents Sea, they're indigenous species that support major commercial fisheries. However, Alaskan king crab populations have fluctuated dramatically over recent decades, creating both economic opportunities and ecological concerns. Alaskan king crab fishing is among the most dangerous occupations in America. The fishery operates primarily in the Bering Sea during fall and winter when weather conditions are most severe. Vessels face massive swells, sometimes exceeding 30 feet, freezing air temperatures, and ice accumulation on deck and superstructure that can capsize boats if not constantly removed. The work itself compounds these environmental hazards.
Are there any bottom ties, Jacob, on the bottoms of the pods? It's sliding like there's nothing tied to the bottom. Everyone should have 2 ties on the bottom. That's what holds it in. The top ones don't do a thing. That's why it's sliding. They're all sliding.
Crab pots, the baited steel traps used to catch king crabs, weigh 600 to 800 pounds empty. When full of crabs and waterlogged, they can weigh well over a ton. These massive objects swing on crane cables across pitching, icy decks. Workers can be crushed by shifting pots, entangled in lines, or swept overboard by waves. The water temperature presents a constant threat. The Bering Sea in winter hovers just above freezing.
Position 5602.42 163.09.01.
Anyone who falls overboard has perhaps 3 to 5 minutes before hypothermia causes loss of consciousness.
Stay down! Get on him! Stay down! We got a problem!
Rescue in those conditions is extremely difficult. Many fishermen who go overboard are never recovered. Work shifts during king crab season can extend 18 to 20 hours with minimal rest.
Hold on, Mom! Get on him!
I'm not really going to be able to leave the helm here. I think,
Pot hit the boat and bounced back.
Crews operate in constant spray that freezes on contact, creating treacherous footing. Exhaustion accumulates across days of continuous operation, increasing the likelihood of mistakes.
He's got a big gash on his nose.
I'm gonna give you his little cleaner.
The combination of heavy equipment, violent motion, extreme cold, and sleep deprivation creates exceptional risk.
Oh, looky Luke.
Very careful how those pots are going over.
line on deck! No! Coming in!
Get him!
Holy. Bring me back. Bring me back.
Big one. These crab right here are 7.4 pound average. Another good one. Look at that pile.
The economics drive this risk-taking behavior. King crab commands premium prices in global markets. Retail prices often exceed $50 per pound, sometimes reaching $70 to $80 for the highest quality. A successful fishing vessel might harvest 200,000 to 300,000 pounds in a season, generating millions in gross revenue. Crew members typically work on share systems, earning percentages of the catch value. A productive season can generate six-figure incomes for crew members in just a few weeks of work. For remote Alaskan communities with limited economic alternatives, king crab fishing represents rare opportunity for substantial income. The seasonal nature allows fishermen to earn in weeks what might take a year in other occupations. This creates powerful incentives to accept the risks inherent in the work. Once caught, king crabs enter sophisticated processing systems. Time is critical. Quality degrades rapidly after the crabs die. Processing facilities along Alaskan harbors operate continuously during the season. Crabs arriving from fishing vessels are sorted by size and quality, then moved into large steam cooking vessels. The cooking process requires precision. Steam at carefully controlled temperatures for specific durations preserves the sweet flavor and firm texture that makes king crab valuable in premium markets. Overcooking produces mushy, waterlogged meat that loses market value. Undercooking raises food safety concerns. Processing facility workers develop expertise in recognizing proper cooking indicators that determine final product quality. After cooking, crabs are rapidly cooled in chilled seawater, then either frozen whole or broken down into sections for packaging. Legs and claws are separated, cleaned, and packaged in various formats for different market segments. Some product goes to retail. The packaged crab legs visible in supermarket seafood sections. Other product goes to food service, restaurants, and catering operations. Still, other product enters ingredient markets for prepared foods. From Alaska, king crab moves into global distribution networks. Japan represents a major market. King crab appears in high-end restaurants as premium sashimi or cooked preparations for special occasions. South Korea similarly values king crab as luxury seafood. Chinese markets consume increasing quantities. American domestic consumption focuses on restaurants and special occasion home meals. European markets, while smaller, pay premium prices for top-quality product. The global trade in king crab generates substantial economic activity. The Alaskan harvest alone contributes approximately $500 to $700 million annually in ex-vessel value, the price fishermen receive at the dock. Processing, distribution, and retail add significant additional value. The total economic impact, including employment and indirect effects, likely exceeds $1 billion annually. This creates the central paradox visible in both Alaska and the Barents Sea. King crabs generate enormous economic value. They support fishing communities, processing workers, and complex supply chains. They provide protein to millions of consumers worldwide. Yet in areas where they're invasive, they cause ecological damage by displacing native species and altering ecosystem function. The management challenge is immense and lacks perfect solutions. Overfishing can collapse populations. This happened to Alaskan king crab stocks in the 1980s when overharvesting combined with unfavorable environmental conditions caused population crashes that devastated fishing communities and required years to recover. Underfishing in areas with invasive populations allows continued ecological damage as crab numbers remain high or continue growing. Alaska employs several management strategies attempting to balance these competing interests. Regulations restrict harvest to male crabs above minimum size thresholds, typically 6.5 inches across the carapace. All female crabs must be returned to the water alive to preserve reproductive capacity. Fishing seasons are short, typically measured in days or weeks rather than months. Total allowable catch limits are set annually based on population surveys conducted by fisheries scientists. These management systems work imperfectly. Population dynamics in marine ecosystems are complex and sometimes unpredictable. Climate change affects water temperatures, which influences crab distribution, growth rates, and reproductive success in ways not fully understood.
Come on. That's pretty good.
Oh my God. I'm counting it.
Survey methodologies provide estimates rather than perfect counts, introducing uncertainty into quota setting. Enforcement across vast ocean areas is challenging, despite technological tools like satellite monitoring and aerial surveillance.
Oh, that's got a day soak on it, so it's tremendous.
The ecological question of whether harvesting invasive king crabs helps or harms ecosystems lacks straightforward answers. Commercial harvest reduces population numbers, which presumably reduces ecological impact on native species. However, fishing pressure may also create selection pressures favoring certain genetic traits.
Oh, yeah. That's got some crab in it there, man. Yes!
Potentially making the invasive population more resilient. The economic value creates incentives to maintain populations at levels that support continued fishing, rather than reducing them to minimal levels that would have less ecological impact.
We got 4 pops left. I'm getting crab in every one of them. Yeah,
In the Barents Sea, Norwegian fisheries actively encourage king crab harvest on their side of the maritime border,
This is a defining moment.
viewing the species as both economic resource and ecological problem requiring control.
Catch me some crabbies.
Oh my God.
That looks good.
Russia similarly harvests king crabs, but has also established some areas where fishing is prohibited to maintain population source areas. The differing management approaches reflect different priorities regarding economic value versus ecological impact. The future trajectory of king crab populations and fisheries remains uncertain. Climate change will likely affect crab distribution as water temperatures shift. Warming Arctic waters might expand suitable habitat, allowing further spread. Alternatively, temperature changes might stress populations in currently optimal areas. Ocean acidification could affect larval development and survival rates. These environmental changes will interact with fishing pressure in complex ways.
Was that pot dogged?
Damn it.
The economic incentives seem likely to persist. Global demand for premium seafood continues growing as affluent populations expand.
You gotta talk to me. Tell me what's going on here, all right? You need to talk.
King crab occupies a luxury niche unlikely to disappear.
My head all the way to my fingers, so now I'm starting to feel it in my toes.
Okay, have you ever experienced anything of this nature before?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Can you give me anything else to go on other than that you're tingling?
The willingness of fishermen to accept dangerous working conditions for substantial seasonal income
Tell me how many fingers you see, Chris. 4. Okay.
shows little sign of changing in communities with limited alternatives. What began as Soviet biological engineering aimed at increasing protein production became an ecological invasion with global economic consequences. King crabs now support major fisheries while simultaneously threatening ecosystems. They generate wealth while displacing native species. They feed millions while altering the seafloor communities that sustain marine productivity. This is uncomfortable ecological reality. No villains, no heroes, just organisms following their biological imperatives in environments where humans placed them. While other humans exploit them for profit and still others document the ecological consequences. The king crab story illustrates how human actions ripple through complex systems in ways difficult to predict and often impossible to fully reverse. Economic interests, ecological concerns, and human communities all collide in cold northern waters where enormous crustaceans continue their expansion across seafloors they never naturally inhabited. This is Deep Discover. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If you have any questions or thoughts about the king crab, feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel to uncover more hidden mysteries and untold stories of nature.